Hello there. Now, you might be wondering why this image looks so weird and why I'm upside down. Before I answer that, let's try to get this the correct way. I have no clue if I can actually do that in post. But to answer your question as to why the image is upside down, you're looking at me through the lens of a camera, obviously. But more like two lenses. See, the lens right in front of the lens of the camera that I'm recording this video on is a number 5 universal synchro Kodak camera. This was developed by the Kodak camera company, and I believe this one that I have was made sometime in the 40s or 50s. I'm not too sure on the exact date. In fact, it might have been made even later than that. But it's for a specific kind of camera, a large format camera, specifically one that takes an 8x10 sheet of film and gets a picture on it, i.e. 8 inches by 10 inches. And you're able to see the image through that lens in such a weird way because the image is getting projected onto a focus glass, is kind of the term for it. I'm still learning all this stuff myself. That allows you to focus the camera, which is quite large, and then put the sheet film in and then take your shot. What you're seeing right now is exactly what someone would see when they were trying to focus the image. Hopefully it looks good. I did a lot of tests beforehand. My wife helped an immense amount to make sure that everything looked perfect. Hopefully what's on the camera right now looks just as good and I didn't screw up some of her hard work. So, as you might have guessed by the title of this video and the introduction, if you didn't read the title for some reason, we're going to be talking about a brand new camera I got, a Graflex studio camera. Hello again. Finally we have a bit of a clearer image there. I watched back the footage and I think the reason why the image was so choppy was because I accidentally had it set to about 60 frames per second and I had to have the ISO pretty high on the digital camera. Something that's not really a super good combination. So I probably should have dropped the FPS a little bit to try to make the image a little bit better so the digital camera could process the footage a bit better. Anyway, this right here, this behemoth of a box, is the camera that you were looking through. Specifically, this lens is what you were seeing it through. The rest of the box is just to help the image get projected onto the film. These cameras are pretty simple when you think about it that way. This is a 1930s design. It's made by Graflex. It was known as the, I think, let me see what the tag says, because dyslexia, you know. Okay, it's a Century Master Studio camera. I thought it was like maybe Century Master or something like that, but no. There was a Century Universal, which was a bit different. You could actually move the front around up and down and stuff. It was pretty cool. This one actually involves the stand itself, moving it up and down and such. I mean, I could drop it with this little thing here. Oh wait, I just locked it. I'm still getting used to this. So yeah, you can drop it like this, or I could just raise it back up. I'm gonna go ahead and lock it there. It's a really cool camera. I mean, you can see how tall it gets. It's really freaking tall. It's awesome. I'm pretty excited about this. In this video, I'm going to be talking about this camera, sort of and sort of have it as an introduction to overall the vintage and antique film aspect of this channel that I'm sort of taking it, that sort of direction. So, to sort of add on to that, one of the things I wanted to do with this channel when I first started back in 2018 was also talk about the ways that the pictures and the footage was taken back then. From a reenactor standpoint, shortly after I made the YouTube channel, I also got myself an old film camera, an old Kodak fold-out junior autographic. The camera has since been destroyed due to a move. The bellows were already failing. I could probably fix it, and maybe I'll do that at some point in the future when I have the time and the funds to do so. But for right now, I mean, you can kind of see where the funds for my camera budget went. It's a cool camera. It's awesome. I mean, right now the lens is open. Probably not the best idea. Just close the shutter and probably get the lens cap on. There we go. But I wanted to talk about film, specifically from the perspective of reenactors and how to properly take photographs at reenactments to get it the most accurate that you can, if you care about that kind of thing. If you don't and you just want to use a digital camera, I'm not throwing shade that way. I think that digital photography is awesome. It's a great way to get really good photos, really crisp photos, and it's awesome. And it's very quick. It's a lot more affordable than film in the long run. It's great. It's awesome. I don't slam anything like that. This is something that's a preference. This specifically is a big preference. Getting a small handheld Kodak autographic is something that's a lot easier to do, a lot cheaper to do. I have my current one I take photos on. I bought that one for $2. And then the conversion kit to get it from 118 film to 120 film cost me another $20. And then the 120 film's like $10 a roll. Then you have to develop it and all that stuff. So the costs add up, but the camera itself was pretty cheap. I had to fix it a little bit, but it didn't take long at all, and I'll eventually get to that. So this is sort of a video to jump off on that series and to also talk about a really cool camera that I am so happy to have, and I'm very grateful I was able to pick it up for a very affordable price. These things do not go for it. I got this for like a fifth of the going rate, which is absolutely insane. The lens on this camera is worth more than what I paid for it. So that's the only reason why I'm able to have it, is because I got extremely lucky. As you can tell, it is on a massive stand. This thing weighs a ton. We can't, it does disassemble, and we actually have to disassemble it to get it into another room. We had to take it apart to bring it in here. The camera does lift off, which is very nice. There's actually different bolt holes to position it and lock it into place, and I need to get bolts for it. I just don't have them right now because I didn't come with them. This right here, as you can see, is loose, and I need to fix that. And behind it are holders for the film trays. These things would hold the film, the sheet film. And this is the blind for it. So you take that out and you place your film in it and you close it up. And then you slide it in the back here. You remove the lens cap and then you expose the film. And there you go. It's a very simple process from that perspective. But then once you start understanding that film needs to be light tight, otherwise it gets ruined, things start to get more complex with the logistics of it. Basically, you want to load your film holders before you even get to the site to shoot. So you have a limited number of shots that you can already take before you actually go to your location. And then you have to figure out a way to get all this to where you're going. That's why this is a studio camera. You're supposed to set it up in a building and it never moves unless you do, or you get a new camera and you sell it. It's not supposed to be disassembled and reassembled all the time. So this is probably going to stay in the house, and I'll have to find a stand that works for this, probably a portable table. But that's a bridge I'm going to cross later. The bellows on this need to either be replaced or fixed. I'm probably going to replace them at some point. What are the bellows? They're the accordion looking things that you see on old cameras, like the fold outs. I'll show a picture of these ones, or maybe I'll have some B-roll footage that I take for editing. They're pretty rigid and not in really good shape. But I mean, I could probably cover it with a really thick blanket and take some photos with them being light tight in that regard. So what you were seeing in the footage there, that is the rear focus screen. And again, I think I will be able to get some B-roll footage to show you that. That specifically allows you to see the image projected from the lens onto the focus screen. And you're able to move around the knobs to move the bellows, the focus screen itself, closer or further away from the lens, allowing you to focus the image very precisely. And then if you want to center the image without having to move the stand, you have a fine-tune adjuster here to move it side to side. And then you can use the crank on the back to move the overall camera up or down. That allows you to focus it even more. This thing can get extremely fine-tuned. It is incredible. When you finally have all your stuff set up, you can take off the lens cover. Well, obviously you'll have it off and you'll have the shutter wide open. So you close the shutter, unless you're doing tintypes. Then you'll leave the shutter open, and instead of doing anything like that, you'll put the lens cover back on. You'll put your tintype in here. You'll remove the lens cover, count off your exposure time, put the lens cover back on. You just got yourself a tintype. But for this, you close the lens, you'd put your sheet film in, and then you'd set your exposure time. This one has timer, which will keep the lens open until you undo it. Bulb, which is for an electronic system that I think it's electronic, that basically works with bulb systems that were made by Kodak and other companies, that will hold it down as long as the flash is on and then release it. And then you have automatic shutters. So this is a 50th second. That is the fastest it goes, is 1/50th of a second. For reference, the fastest my Kodak Model H goes is 1/100th of a second. And that is still considered slow by modern standards. That's basically like the minimum that you have set. If you look at sort of the way that you're supposed to expose film and how you're supposed to set your aperture, to understand the exposure that you're using, if you have 100 ISO, and you have it set to aperture f16, you want and it's a bright sunny day, you want a shutter speed of 1/100th of a second. If your ISO is 200, you have 1/200th of a second. This only goes to 1/50th. So this is built for very slow speed film. Hence the very slow lens shutter. You can actually bring it all the way down to a full second-long exposure, and you can just hear how long that exposure lasts. It's a really neat camera. I really like it. I don't really know what this does. I'm still looking into that, but then here's your aperture right here. You can go all the way to f32 and bring it all the way back to f4.5, which funnily enough is the best aperture I can get on my digital camera, and it's right here in analog form. There's that. As you can also see, this whole lens tray here can actually be brought off. You undo this, you undo the screws up here, I think. Oh wait, no, you just lift it up. I actually haven't done that before. And the lens comes off, and you can actually see right into the bellows. This was very useful back then for a quick swap of a lens. If you got a situation where a different lens does better, you just quickly swap it out, and you're good to go. So a lot of studios would have multiple ones of these stored throughout their facilities. And then of course, there we go. And then you swap out the lens, you've got a brand new lens on there, and you're all set to go. You don't have to worry about anything. Super, super cool. Now I have an 8x10 sheet holder backing here, but 8x10 is not the only sheet film format. There's 5x7 and there's 4x5. 4x5 being the most popular. There's also like 2x3, I think, if I remember correctly, or 3x4. There's a couple other smaller ones that most people don't use anymore because it's really redundant. They're very close to the same size as 120 film. In fact, one of them is literally just 120 film cut into a sheet, and there's really no point to do it because you just shoot on 120 film. But here, I'll show you one that is like that. Here. So this is the 5x7 holder backing. There's little notches on these corners here, and that right there is to snap in to the backing. And again, I'll show some B-roll footage of that happening. And you can actually orient it depending on how you want the image to look. If you want a landscape image, you orient it just like this. But then you can flip it around, and now you have a portrait image, theoretically. There are other things that you can do. So with 5x7, if you're taking portraits and you have it in landscape mode, a common print size was 4x5. You want a landscape mode 4x5 or something similar, you have this nifty device. That looks kind of weird, right? But if you stick it back here, you suddenly have two images. Wait, no, wrong orientation. You suddenly have two images on one sheet. Suddenly you're saving costs on yourself while getting more pictures to your customer and making them have a better time in your studio. You're able to give them basically 4 images, costing you the material cost of only 2, both in development and in film. Saves you time as well. You don't have to get new sheets. You just use 2. That means you need less trays to hold your film. You need half as many. I'm not trying to sell you this. I'm just saying the benefits of this thing. But how does it work? This is in a fixed position in the backing. So what goes on? Funnily enough, they thought of that too. The backing moves side to side, and I'll show you some footage of that happening too. This thing is incredible. I've been having such a blast figuring out how it works, and I can't wait to get this thing out there and taking pictures. Unfortunately, we can't do that today because I don't have the film. I don't have the proper development facilities yet at my house, and I just don't have the ability to do so. But this camera is absolutely incredible. It is a fantastic piece of history. It is a 30s design. It's technically based off the even older ones from the 1800s that you stereotypically see. And for the focus sheet in the back to work, you do have to have a blanket over your head like you see in those old things. But the second you put the tray of film in there, you can't actually see through the focus glass. So there's really no point to having the hood over. The only reason why you'd have a hood over the bellows that's light tight is if the bellows have leaks and you can't get a new set of bellows or you are unable to repair them. That's probably what I'll have to do at first until I can get a replacement pair ordered and in the mail. I think my first couple shots I'm going to take will be before I remove the bellows, and that's a process in of itself. I might document it, I might not feel like it, but we'll see. So That is the Graflex Century Master Studio camera. You don't see very many of these things. There's a couple YouTube videos about them. They're not very common, but most large format cameras like this aren't very common. But for the future of film photography, I'm going to document some of the film photography that I do in the future. I'm going to showcase sort of how I do film photography specifically, because I like to do it in a way that is as it was back then, as close as I can get I like to get the photography, the end result to look as vintage as possible, as antique as possible. And we're also going to be going through some experiments together, trying to see if I can get more accurate looking photos. And I'm going to try to develop photos like the German soldiers did in the field during World War I. I have a pretty cool book that details some of those things that they did, including a picture of them developing film themselves in their darkroom. So, I say darkroom, it was a dugout, basically. So we're going to be talking about a lot of that stuff. And part of it is going to be taking massively insane photos with this beast of a camera. And I can't wait to do that video showing the first couple pictures with this. It's going to be pretty insane. And I hope you guys will stick around for the ride. If you guys got recommended this video for some reason, I don't think that's going to happen. Most of my videos stay outside the algorithm, which is fine. I like my small little community. You guys are awesome. But if for some reason this video does take off and you guys are new to this channel because photography or whatever, I mostly do reenactment stuff. I do a lot of history stuff. If you don't care about that, you only want the photography, I have an Instagram account and a Facebook account that just talk about the photography side. Both those links will be in the description. I will not be getting another YouTube channel, so you'll have to deal with all the history stuff if you subscribe and you want to stay connected to it. So if you want to stick around, go ahead. This, like with all my other videos with the series I'm starting with, that's the airplane build or the trench build or my Zeppelin Stocking video, which I keep talking about but never actually do because I'm still writing the script. It's going to be a while before I make another video in this series, but I can guarantee you it is coming, and I'm very excited to showcase that for you guys. So yeah, please leave your feedback in the comments. I would love to hear some ideas that you guys want to see, like some things that you guys want to see photography-wise. And as always, like, subscribe, do things that help the algorithm, even though I don't think it really likes me too much. And fly safe out there, guys.